So this lesson is how to do staircases in 2-point perspective. So just to review, when we did 1-point perspective, I did this sort of a drawing. And again, we figured out the math on the one side of it and then went back to the X. And we're going to do the same routine for 2-point perspective. And, understand I don't have all this stuff magically memorized necessarily, even though I draw them over and over again every year. And stairs is the one that I always have to stop and just kind of sketch out first, going, how do I do this again? So that was me just kind of sketching it out. And that's always my advice, is just kind of stop and take a scrap piece of paper and work through it before you take out the straight edge, before you start with the precise math. Okay, so staircase and 2-point perspective. So basically you're going to start by drawing the cube where you want the stairs to be. So however high you want them to be, however long you want them to be. So you're just going to establish where you want them. And here's another trick. I've started to draw and I don't have any X's yet. So I'm just kind of starting to kind of go, oh, I want them here and maybe here. And as soon as I get my main lines, that'll give me my X. And then of course, if I go straight across, that will show me where my X will be over here somewhere. So I can actually just pick a point anywhere on this line and it'll be my second X. So here, I'll just stick one right there. So when you start a drawing, you don't always know where those X's are going to be. So you can just put the main lines in to begin with, and then figure out where you want your X to be. So I'm doing the same process we always do. Start with the corner, go to the X's, and get my rectangle. Okay, so now that I've got that, so I know where my staircase is going to be, I need to be able to take the one side of it and figure out the math. So same steps we always do. Let's find the middle. Okay, so knowing I'm going to be starting in this corner, going down, okay, let's start dividing this one up. I'm slightly off and rushing a bit. And we can kind of start going, okay, how many stairs are we going to have? This, if I go like this, we're going to get 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's not enough. So I'm going to divide these squares up again, starting in this corner. So now if I start my stairs here, 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 yeah, that looks good. So I'm going to come here, 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 here. Okay, so now it's this square that I need to play with. So really no need to go in and find the centers for the whole thing. You have enough experience, hopefully by now, to know, okay, here, 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 and now I need this one. And I need this one. So here, 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 this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and I just need to do this square. Okay, so now I can go here, here, and here. Okay, I'm just going to darken those lines. Make sure I don't erase the wrong stuff. Okay, so once I figured that out, I can get rid of everything else. Okay, so the top line is already done, and the bottom line is already done. Oh, and I guess this back right here, I can keep that one. Okay, so I'm going to start at the front like I always do, and I'm just going to start going back to the X. So step number 1, we figured out the math. Step number 2. So it doesn't matter that we're getting into a much, much more complicated thing. The steps themselves don't change, and that's the lesson that you have to learn. Following my drawings is nice and all, but if you're just blindly following these lessons without actually learning the process, it's not that helpful. So just starting to say the steps over and over like I do to emphasize it's the formula that you need to understand, and that it doesn't really change. So you can see it's mathematically getting smaller and smaller as it goes back in the distance. And of course it's really hard to see the top of the stairs, and that's because we're up near those X's. Okay, so this is where I tend to have a little bit of problem, is trying to kind of figure out this next part. I find it a little bit more difficult. I'm going to start up at the top. So we need to cut off the back, so we're going back to this X. It's a little hard for me to see these spaces, so I'm just going to not worry too much about where I end over here. I'm just going to do the vertical one first, just because it's easier for me to see that. Okay, so from the top of that back to the X. And then this step right here, very, very skinny little step right there. You got to be careful on this, that if you skip just one of these spaces, it's going to mess everything up. So I'm going to come straight down. To the X. Again, we're not doing anything new. The front goes straight up and down, the back goes straight up and down. Right? This end goes to that X. The back has to go to the X. So I just randomly started at a spot at the top where, you know, if I wanted to be exact where I started, I should have started down here. But since it's just an isolated staircase, it doesn't really matter. When you're trying to stick it and to integrate it into an existing drawing, that gets a little trickier, that you have to be much more precise with where you start and stop. But it will work out because you use this mathematical equation to figure it out. It will all fit in. Okay, so this is what we want it to look like. We want it to get bigger as it's coming towards us, and we want it to get constantly smaller as it's going farther away. If that isn't happening, then you should stop immediately and go, whoa, if my stuff's not getting smaller, I'm making a mistake, and check what you're doing.